Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, I've been chasing this woman. She was actually the inspiration for me doing the podcast in the very first place. She has no idea about this, but it really changed my life because I met her at a convention. I was supposed to have, I think, 7 minutes to speak. I only had 4 at the time, but I went in and I saw her in the back of the room, and she has this smile, and all of you that can see her right now, you could see it. She has this smile that this light is behind her, and she carries around this light. And I had no idea. Well, I knew what it was, and we'll talk about that later. But it was shining at such a high level. And then we connected in the back of the room. I told her this. I told her, I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. She had no idea what that meant. But I was so impressed by every single thing that she did. And she was so focused, but she was focused on purpose as opposed to what most people are focused on, which was the money. And then I started to realize, I got an opportunity to be able to meet her, to talk with her, converse with her. And then I found out what she did, which I love this side of it. Because when I saw that she was locked into her purpose, that she was, not about what everyone else was about. And then I realized when I saw her book, Redefining Wealth, when I started to see this movement that she had, it made so much sense to me. And it was probably one of the most authentic things that I have ever seen. She then had me on her show. We got a chance to talk, and she really transformed my life. And we'll get a chance to talk about that later. But I tell you, it's probably one of the most impactful people that you'll ever hear, that you'll ever be around, and a person who is really redefining what wealth means. So please welcome to the show, Miss Patrice Washington, Mrs. Patrice Washington.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. What up, friend?
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Well,
I really am.
I tell you, Patrice, from the very, very, very beginning, you had me on the podcast with yours, and I was blown away. I was blown away by your 6 pillars. I was blown away by how you were redefining and getting people to, in a day where everyone is trying to hustle. Everyone has a side hustle. Everybody's trying to monetize. How are you monetizing this? I mean, I even go, I'll walk to the store and people are like, how are you monetizing going to the store? But you have done this thing in a completely different way, getting people focused on what really matters and wealth meaning something different. Can you help me to understand this?
Yes. I mean, first of all, again, I'm so honored to be here. And I just have to shout you out. As much as, you give me all those praises, I don't know if you realize you are on page 30 of Redefine Wealth for Yourself. I talk about you and living by the 98-2 rule, because when you came on Redefining Wealth and when I read your book, you blew my mind. You and your dad, y'all blew my mind. And I want you to know that I adore you and the feeling is mutual and all that great stuff. So now, what I feel about wealth, you already know the vibe, right? Most people look at wealth as if it's just about money, material possessions. And I was definitely one of those people. Kelly, you already know. I came out of the University of Southern California, came out of USC, hit the ground running, built real estate and mortgage brokerage that became a 7-figure business by the time I was 25. And because I was such a great test taker and I could get my broker's license at 21 and I was getting certifications and all those things, I really confused knowledge with wisdom. I thought, I have all the education, so I must be wise. And it wasn't until I lost everything in the recession. Even though I had done all the things, I was chasing money, I was thinking that bigger, better, brighter, bolder was the way to go, I still ended up on the bathroom floor, bawling, snot, and crying, saying, why me, when that 7-figure business crashed and I ended up literally scraping up change and begging the power man to turn my lights back on or my daughter's milk will spoil at the time. And despite all the money, right, because that's what many of us think it's about, I just got to make more money. There were so many other pieces to my life that were missing. And so it was in what I call that still small voice, it was in that come to Jesus moment on the bathroom floor in the teeny tiny apartment in Metairie, Louisiana I was living in, when I heard the Holy Spirit, or, again, the still small voice say, get your Bible. And I landed on this scripture. It was Proverbs 17:16. And it said, what good is money in the hands of a fool if they hath no desire to seek wisdom? And that was the turning point. That was March 9th, 2009. That was the day that changed my life forever, because it was the first day that I realized, first of all, difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is having information, but wisdom is knowing how to apply it. Most people, right? We live in like information hoarding time. Like, we are information gatherers. We will listen to the podcast, we'll read all the books, we'll buy the books and think that by buying them we'll get the information by osmosis, right? Like, we will do all the things, Google to death, and not realize that for many of us, there's a reason that we're not able to apply the information we already know. There's a lot of clutter that we are dealing with in our lives, in our minds, in our relationships, in our environment, that are keeping us from doing the things we already know to do. And so I became, in 2009, obsessed with this idea that it was my job to go out and tell people that this journey is not just about chasing money, guys. We got to seek wisdom. Like, we have to pursue purpose. It's not just the money. We can get money, but will we be able to maintain it and sustain it over the long haul? Or will we be people who are forever in seasons of feast and famine because we don't realize the cycles that we are going in because of the mindset that we carry?
So Patrice, with this, okay, this my dad said it over and over to me. This is something that you'll love about Pops, is he said, "Stop chasing rabbits, boy." And I said, what are you talking? He said, "Stop chasing rabbits." He said, because these things all over the place. And I want you to help me with this, because what happens then when a person goes from knowledge, just having, information, goes to wisdom, understanding the right use of that information, and then they start to see prosperity, because this is where most people come off the tracks. But you have seemed to understand this part of it and help, where most people will go, I'm going to seek wisdom. Then they gain prosperity as far as financially. And then they go back into the cycle. How do people stay out the cycle?
Because it's so much bigger than that, right? So going back, the other thing that I found was that wealth was not just money and material possessions. When you adapt, which is why everything I have is redefining wealth, right? When you adapt a new definition of wealth, you will see that just because you get the bonus, just because you get the raise, just because you hit a lick, right, in the business, that's not the end all be all. The original definition of wealth, the 12th century definition, is the condition of well-being. So when you start to look at your life more holistically and say, but am I well? Am I well? This is why, Kelly, there's certain opportunities that I don't take because they will jeopardize my well-being. The money is right. The money looks good. The money sounds good. On paper, it could be right. But when I think about, well, how much time is this going to cost? Right? Is this going to take? Is this going to like take my peace? Is this going to take me away from my family for an extended period of time? Is this going to mess up my flow, like with other things in my life? I have to start to look at every opportunity from a more holistic perspective, because none of this stuff is just in a vacuum, right? It's not just the money stuff. What I teach at Redefining Wealth are the 6 pillars of wealth. There are so many other parts of your life that impact your finances, even when you're not thinking about it. And so you start to not go in those cycles or get into that pattern once you start to look at things from not just what the paycheck is, not just what the payout is, but how purposeful is it in allowing me to be well in every other part of my life. When you can start checking off that I'll be well in my fit, I'll be well in people, I'll be well here, I'll be well there. Now you have the right opportunity. If the only thing you can check off is I'll be well with money, is probably not the right opportunity for you. And you have to stand strong and say no. I say no more than I say yes.
So Patrice, you're one of the masters at this, and probably one of the best that I've ever seen. A lot of times when people have a message like you do, and you're sitting in your purpose, like since the first time that we got a chance to talk, you could see that radiating from you. You weren't trying to be anybody. You weren't chasing any rabbits. You were just doing that. As you go along, and what I love about it with your gift and your purpose is you help other people to understand their own.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that you keep it in line for you? Because a lot of people that go through these kind of things and they start to do it, people then get focused on the person that's giving them the information. But I've watched you. You shun that. and you push it right
Mm-mm.
back to the other people. You are so good at this. You have not become the guru. You have not become the I'm Patrice and you need to come to me and sit at my feet. But that is such a lure for what you're doing. So how have you been able to
Yeah.
stay in line with that?
First of all, it's always been my prayer that I not become that person. Seriously. Like, it's always become my prayer that, God, people see you, not me, right? Like, I'm just a messenger. So number 1, that's always been a prayer in my heart's posture. I would say number 2 is always remind people, I teach women, like, how to build businesses online, right? As an example. So that's one way that they can activate their God-given purpose in the marketplace. Well, I always tell people, but I'm not the one that called you. I didn't call you. You're here, right? Because you felt called to do certain work in the marketplace. And I'm here to be a resource, but I'm not your source. So you're not here looking for my validation. You're here because I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly of my experience in these different areas, whether it be media or podcasting or becoming an author, any of those things. I'm going to give you the real and I'm going to align you with resources. But at the end of the day, your higher power is your source. Do not come to me for that. I'm not here to validate you. The one who called you has already given you the validation. And I just constantly am in that space of just reminding people I'm not perfect. I don't even have a desire to be perfect. I do my best to operate in excellence, but at the end of the day, Kelly, I'm here out of obedience. I'm here because of my own testimony. I'm here because I know what it felt like to not have support, to not know where to go, to not know what to do, right? And so I'm here because my first grade teacher, Ms. Boynton, said, when you know something, you have a responsibility to share with your friends. And to this day, I live my life like that. If I know something, I got a responsibility to share with my friends. Doesn't mean that I'm now the teacher or the principal. I'm just your friend. I'm like, girl, friend, like, dude, here's what I know. Come on along. I've never wanted to be someone who was on the mountaintop pointing at people like, you're wrong, you're bad, what's wrong with you? I always wanted to be the person because at any given day, dude, I'm awesome and a hot ass mess. Like that just is what it is on any given day, right? So we're in this thing together. I've always wanted to build my platform from a perspective of, life is full of, peaks and valleys and all that stuff. And at any point, I'm just like, let's go. I got you. Like, I'll grab your hand. And the most rewarding thing for me is looking at the reviews, of books or of my podcast and people saying, I feel like she's my girlfriend who just wants me to do better. I feel like, men will be like, I feel like that's my big sister. And she just like, she wants us to get it together. That's always been the posture that I wanted to have. I didn't want to. I wanted to restore hope for people, not make them feel judged. We feel judged enough.
Patrice, how like where does the permission come from, right? And so the reason why I say this is because when I watch you in what you do, with the books, it's redefining wealth for yourself. Am I correct?
Redefine wealth for yourself.
Redefine wealth for yourself. If you haven't read it, guys, you have to read the book. Like you gotta get in touch with this woman, whether it be through the podcast, live events, speaking engagement, whatever it is. But who gave you the permission? Like, because a lot of times people are waiting for that. They're waiting for a person to, an encourager or whatever it is. Where does that come from with Patrice?
So the fourth pillar of redefining wealth is the faith pillar. It's about believing in something greater. And I always tell people, Kelly, I'm not here to try to force you to believe what I believe. I'm here to remind you that if you say you believe something, then it's your responsibility to make time to practice it, right? Just as much as you would put a doctor's appointment on the calendar or a business appointment, I put faith on the calendar, right? And that means that I block out time to spend a lot of time alone, actually. As much as I'm very you know, I probably seem like an extrovert professionally. I'm very much an introvert and I spend a lot of time by myself. I spend a lot of time processing and I'm usually reading or praying, journaling, meditating, those types of things. And the permission comes from being still enough to hear the still small voice that wants to guide you. I think a lot of us are looking for a lot of external validation from all the voices around. Like, I love my clients, but they don't validate me, right? Knowing that I can support them fulfills me, but I can't be validated by them, because then I bend to their will, and they're not investing in working with me for me to coddle them or go along with what they want to say. I'm the coach. So I'm going to tell you what I know you need, not what you want to hear, right? But if I was looking for your validation, or I wanted you to like me, or I wanted you to feel like I was your friend, then I would be bending to your will and doing whatever you want. And that doesn't really support you or me. So my validation comes from the one who called me. This is anointed work, right? What you describe about me, which I'm so, I'm humble by, but it's an anointing. That's what it is. So the one who anointed me and appointed me is what validates me. The spirit, like that spirit of knowing I was born with purpose, on purpose, for purpose, and there are people who need me. And so even when I don't feel like it, right? Because we don't, just because it's purposeful, that don't mean we always feel like showing up, right? Or always doing a thing. But I always think of the person who's out there who may hear something similar from someone else, but there's something about my voice. There's something about my presence. There's something about my delivery. There's something about my tone that can only speak to them in that moment, in that way. And so if I get caught up in who likes me, who doesn't, and perfectionism and imposter syndrome and all the things that keep us from answering the call, then what happens to that person? And I think about them every day.
Patrice, as a young woman, okay, because this is one of the things. My daughter's 13, so maybe this is just a selfish question for me, being a dad. That self-confidence, like that confidence that you have and that you portray. I know that, I mean, those things are built. Am I correct? Over time. For the young
Because I
lady,
definitely didn't start out that way.
so talk to us about that young lady, that young Patrice. Where
Hmm.
does she start to sit into who Patrice is? Because I mean, number one, being a woman in this world, growing up in your world, and
In the
I'll
hood.
say and I'll say this too. Number one, being a woman, but number two, being a black woman
Hmm.
in our society. This is not always a recipe for someone to just say, like, I'm going to be unabashedly myself and I'm going to go
Hmm.
after what it is that I want and after my purpose.
I'll tell you straight up, I've only felt this confident in being me for probably 7 years or so. And I'm 40. I did not grow up with like my dad in the home. So, right, like my daughter is growing up that way. Your daughter is growing up that way. There's a lot of validation and affirmation just from having, a good dad in the home. That was not my experience. And so I grew up addicted to achievement because I thought I needed to earn love. I didn't know that love just is because of like who a father is, right? I didn't know that that was just what it was. I was like, "Oh, I have to earn love. So I have to be again the best, the brightest, the smartest, the boldest. Like I have to do all these things." It was very performative. So I wish I could say that I made it to USC and graduated, with the dean's list and all that stuff because I just, naturally wanted to. No. I was performing. I was trying to earn love. And so I actually grew up with not the best self esteem, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, a chocolate girl, first generation American, Belizean American. And I remember being told by even people in my family that I was the ugly one. And I always felt like I was too dark, I was too tall, I was too thin, my lips were too wide, my cheeks were too big. It was always something. I was very much picked apart. So my identity became in being the smart one. So even out of my friends, I did not feel like the pretty one. I was the smart one. And so that is the identity that I leaned into. And now that I'm older and I've met many women who identify with this, you have to find your place in the group. Everyone has the title, right? It wasn't until I was 21 or 22 years old. I had gone on a trip, come back, and my husband, Gerald, who you've referenced a few times, now he's my husband. Back then, he was my best friend. And then we started dating. Um, I went on a trip and came back, and he had decorated my apartment. I had just moved into this place right after graduation, and he decorated my apartment, and a part of what he did was blow up these pictures of me that he liked. And so I walk in, and he's literally hung my clothes up, everything. He's done everything. I mean, the place is amazing, except for I see these pictures, Kelly, and I start crying. And I run out of the apartment and sit on the steps. And he's like, "What's like, oh my God, like, are these tears of joy? Like, is she nuts? Like, what is happening?" And I said, "Why would you do that?" I felt like it was cruel because he didn't realize I didn't like to look at myself. And he's like, "You should probably talk to someone. Like, cause I don't know if you see what I see." And he took me in the bathroom and we stood in the mirror. And he was like, "Have you seen you? And I could not receive it. I couldn't receive it. It wasn't common for me to receive those types of compliments. Like, I couldn't see it. So I started therapy. And going to therapy is where I learned that hurt people, and that the people in my family that said those things that should have been the ones protecting me and supporting me, they were hurt too. So I learned to have compassion for them. Therapy is where I learned a new definition of forgiveness, and that's giving up the possibility of a better past. It is what it is. You got to move on. That's where I learned to start getting in the mirror and affirming myself. And even when I didn't believe it, I did the exercise that my therapist told me to do, which was getting in the mirror and complimenting myself all the time. All of these things started to come together, but they did take time. And I was 25 before I could look in the mirror without cringing. I was 25 years old. And remember, that's also the first year that my business made seven figures. So I definitely see that there's a link between, right, what is in our subconscious mind, our limiting beliefs, all those things. And today on my podcast, Monique Coleman was on, and she shared this with me, and it changed my life. She said, "Your business will only grow to the extent you're willing to heal. Your business will only grow to the extent you're willing to heal." So when I look at how my life has, like, continued to progress, and when I look at, honestly, Kelly, my face on the cover of all these books, or national television, or all the stages that I've been on, and all the work that I do with brands, and I just had a big brand deal with DSW, and every morning I was opening emails, and it was either me or me and my daughter, like, in the email, right? And people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're in this DSW ad," right? How could I be this person had I not dealt with my childhood trauma? My purpose required me to go sit on someone's couch and do the work to heal and to forgive and to process the possibility of a better future despite where I had come from. So when you say, "How are you so confident?" This confidence that you see, I've been this a shorter period of time than anything else.
Well, and I love that because a lot of times, whether it be a person watching right now, which they see you and you're absolutely stunning. This is what I've felt
Thank
since
you,
the beginning. But
friend.
most of the time, people see a Patrice and they see a Patrice Washington. You need to put that together. Like, they see a Patrice Washington and they're like, "Oh wow, here's the books. Here's the, the speaking." They see you on Success Magazine as the top 125. Like, you're seeing these things and you're thinking, she got a perfect life. Everything's good for her. Yeah,
Whew.
she could say chase her purpose, but she has no idea. Let's go to the bathroom floor. Let's
Mm,
go to the bathroom floor. Take us there. Take us to the emotion that you were feeling when
mm.
you don't have the money to be able to have the utilities and your daughter's milk's about to spoil.
The shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, the fear, even just like the questioning, why would you bring a baby into this? I could not believe that I waited all that time and then brought a baby into this foolishness after I had the matching Range Rovers and the 6,000 square foot home, and I was doing all the things, and then my daughter came, and then a part of, that whole process is, Reagan was born 10 weeks early. I was on bed rest in the hospital for 10 weeks. I was racking up a $400,000 medical bill, you know, at Cedar Sinai in Beverly Hills. Like there was a lot going on at that time. The business failed. I had 16 loan officers and real estate agents that I had to lay off, right? Home foreclosed, cars repossessed, you know, laying people off, selling everything I could on Craigslist, like literally upside down. And I was like, what did I do? I've been a good person. I operate in integrity. I try to treat people well. Why is this happening to me? Right? Like, I will never forget that. I will never forget being on my knees in that bathroom, like when my knees buckled and I couldn't even stand and cry anymore. You know, I will never forget putting my forehead on the linoleum. I will never forget like that that bawling and snotting till you don't even recognize your own face. Like you look like an entirely different person. I'll never forget it, but I also will never regret it. I also don't regret getting to that place and getting to that moment. I don't regret being humbled in that way. I don't regret being broken in that way because it was the wake up call to my destiny, dude. Like, I don't mean to be all, you know, but it was like, it was it. And I think we all have those defining moments where you get to the end of the rope and you're like, all right, I have brought myself as far as I could take myself. Like, what's going on? And that moment saved my life and it changed my life. And it's not like anything got better overnight. What changed is my perspective. What changed is like, I got this sense of like, I got to figure this out. But it was different. It wasn't like, oh, I got to figure the money out. It was like, I got to figure me out. Like I got to really lean into like what am I even here to do? And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. But there's been so many of those moments over, you know, the last what is it, 12, 13 years or so. There's been so many of those moments and there's been so many times where I have turned things down and people thought I was crazy because it was not purposeful. The money looked good, the money looked right, but it didn't feel purposeful. I'll tell you one of those times, Kelly, I shared this in the book, I believe, is when the first time I was gonna go on national television, I was all pumped up. It was the Steve Harvey show. I had been waiting, you know, hoping that a producer would call me and say, "Hey," I had been on his radio show, but not the TV show. And this was gonna be my first national television break. And they called, they're like, "We want you. You can fly out to Chicago and all the stuff." Everything was ready. They said, "We'll send you the script and what's going on." It was attached to a brand partner. It was attached to an advertiser. And I read through some of the talking points and they got to the end and they wanted me to say something that I would not even say to my close friend. They wanted me to give advice, right? That I would not say to someone that I genuinely cared about or loved. I would not say that to anyone in my audience. I didn't agree with it. I didn't believe in it. And so I replied and said, "Is this line, can this line be removed? Because that's not something I would say. Here's what I would actually say." And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, is that a line that Steve can say? Like, he can say it because I'm sure he'll be paid well." And they were like, "No." And they're like, "Well, this advertiser is going to pay you $15,000 for a 3-minute segment. Like, you sure you don't want to just say the line?" I didn't even think about it, Kelly. I replied and said, "No, I can't. This was going to be my first opportunity. Could have been maybe my only opportunity on national television at the time. I don't know." And I said, "No, I'm not going to be able to do it, but thank you so much." And they were like, "Let me call her." Like they were calling like, "Hey, I don't know if you're sure what you're doing here, what you're saying. This could be a great way for you to get on the show." And I was like, "No, I totally understand that. I'm so appreciative, but I can't say that because I wouldn't say that to my friend. I wouldn't say that to somebody. So why would I go on national television and say that for $15,000 or 50,000 or 500,000? I'm not going to say something I don't believe." And that was it. And I was like, "Well, that's it." And then a couple months later, they hit me back. "Hey, we got it. We got another opportunity for you. Do you want to check it out?" They sent the script over. It was cool. I was like, "I can do that." And when I went, one of the producers said, "I respect you so much." I'm so happy for you to have this opportunity. And that was the start to me being a regular on the Steve Harvey talk show. I had already been on the radio show, but on the talk show for like 3 years. I was on there. I don't know how many dozens of times, but that was it. And it was holding the line and chasing purpose. A part of my purpose is to be someone that people can trust and to be somebody that people find integral. And so no, I didn't do it. Now, how many opportunities do you think I went on to get that made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, over the next several years because of those appearances? But I was able to do it on my terms. Never did they come to me again with some crappy stuff talking about, can you just say this? Never again. They respected. They respected chase purpose, not money. But before other people respect that about us, we have to enforce those boundaries that we set for our values and how we want to live our lives and our businesses. And I've done that. That's one example. I've probably done that like 10 times in different segments of my business, different genres. If it's not right, I'm not going to make a decision based solely on the paycheck. It has to be purposeful and it has to be like the real deal. And if it's not, it's a no.
Patrice, talk to that person right now that is in dire straits, that's at a
Mhm.
place where they don't know where the next one is coming from. And they have the choice of holding on to your integrity or being able to pay the light bill or being able to pay whatever. This part, because I think a lot of times, and there's probably listeners out there that it doesn't mean that you're, in dire straits just financially. It could be emotionally. And you're saying, well,
Mhm.
if I just do this thing, it'll get me through. Can you talk to that person right now to maybe some actionable things that could get them through this part to help them to understand there's a different way?
So I will say that, another one of the examples, real quick, is just when I first came to Atlanta, I was living on my brother's couch. This is after I had been in that teeny tiny apartment where I had my come to Jesus moment. I was living on my brother's couch. I needed a job. I couldn't find a job to save my life. I didn't have work experience like traditionally. I had only run my business coming straight out of college, right? And so I couldn't find a job. And the only thing I knew is that I felt like I was called to help people with personal finance education. So I started to volunteer at financial education nonprofits. Like literally was praying one day and got the like download, like Google and look for people who help people with personal finances. And it just took me down this path. And so there were like 3 or 4 nonprofit organizations in Atlanta at the time. I emailed all of them, asked about volunteer opportunities, ended up volunteering at 2 consistently. And I remember even my brother would be like, why are you going to do that? Like, you need to be looking for a job, right? Like, you need to be doing these things. But I was going out there and what I did in the meantime, Kelly, is I did odd jobs. I took a odd job as a salon manager for someone that I knew. So someone who knew someone who knew someone was like, "Hey, if you work at the front desk and run like, sales and check people in, check people out, you can get your hair done, your nails done, your eyelashes done, for free. It's like a barter thing." And she paid me a couple $100s. Then I took another job with someone else who paid me like $500 every 2 or 3 weeks, right? I took those little odd jobs because it was just enough to help without distracting me from what I knew I was being called to do. So, yes, we need to make money. And yes, we have bills to pay. But I did not want my days to be inundated with things that I did not find purposeful, that I did not find would be fulfilling or really in alignment. So many things happened in that season, right? That I completely credit with getting me here. First of all, as the salon manager who really barely got paid, she also let me drive like an old Range Rover. It was old, but I had a Range Rover that had been repossessed. So I felt like it was like a little wink, like, okay, been there, done that on the way back, right? That was our mantra back then. So, but I'm there one day. Who walks in? Dennis Kimbro. Dennis Kimbro is the author of a book called Think and Grow Rich. He's like a professor at Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice, and he's a professor at Clark Atlanta University. Steve Harvey had given me Dennis Kimbro's book when I was in college. I read the book. I kept the jacket of the book on my vision board. I was doing vision boards before The Secret. I didn't know they were vision boards. It was just something that worked for me. So he walks in and I'm like, gosh, I know this man. He sits down. I don't think anything of it. And then I hear someone call him DK. And then it clicks. I'm like, DK, Dennis Kimbro. I ended up talking to him. He became my mentor. He's the person that encouraged me to write my first book. He said, take all those blog posts that you've been doing and turn it into a book. He gave me that advice. Within months, I put it all together and my first book was born. What am I saying? First of all, there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you. But where are you? Who are you being when they're watching? If I would have just taken some other job because, okay, that would make at the time $40,000 a year would have made all the difference. I mean, $30,000 a year. But had I put myself in a space that was not necessarily for me and not utilizing my full gifts and not really in alignment with what I felt called to do, I would have never run into Dennis Kimbro. Who knows if I would be on 5 books because the first book wouldn't have been written. His encouragement, I met him at a job that I was bartering at. His encouragement is one of the things that like put me on the path to doing what I do, right? Another one of the financial education nonprofits, I ended up like meeting someone else that worked there and we partnered. And before you know it, like down the road, we started our own radio show when another radio station was like, oh, I don't like your voice or whatever. Program director said he didn't like my voice. This guy that I met at the other nonprofit, we started our own radio show. Well, that was preparation for me to do my 4 years on the Steve Harvey show. I learned it there, right? I think about all these places that they weren't very profitable in the moment, but what did it give me access to? What did it open my eyes to? How did it help me expand like my thought process around what was possible? I would do that again for the way the relationships and the ways of being and the things that I learned over going and taking a job with anybody that was not in alignment with what I felt called to do. I could have taken a $30 or $40,000 job, but look at what I would have missed out on over these last 10 years. No comparison.
Rewind that, everyone who's listening. Rewind that. Listen to that every single morning. I mean, if you're watching it, you can see that. This is why I was so excited to have you on the show, Patrice, is because people can hear this. They can hear literally it's purpose coming through the speaker right now. If you're listening to it, if you're watching it, you could see it coming through her face. Help someone at that point. Talk to them right now. If they're saying, okay, I'm hearing about this purpose. I hear about the purpose. I hear about the purpose. I'm intimidated by purpose. Simplify that for them and help them to get them on their journey, because most people are so scared to go after their purpose because they're like, oh my gosh, that's such a big thing. Like, I don't know if I actually have one. What does Patrice say to that?
Patrice says that purpose is not something that we have to find or look for. Purpose, like we literally are purpose. The fact that we're here is purposeful, right? And I know for myself, I was intimidated by that. I used to think that I had no gifts because I thought that, either you needed to dribble a basketball or, play the piano well or do something else. And I think here's what happens. We start to dismiss and diminish our God-given gifts because we compare them to what other people are doing. And so then it doesn't seem sexy enough. It doesn't seem good enough. It's not bold enough. We start like putting all of this stuff on. It's like, but this was the thing that was given to you freely. Like you and I are parents. Have you ever stood in a line or gone out of your way to order something for your kids or done all the things to make sure that they got the gift that you knew like would help them or you knew that they needed? And then they open it and they're like, but Susie's gift is better. I remember one year Reagan did that. We like got her custom skates, and then she compared her custom skates to the little boy across the street's old raggedy regular skates. She was like, "Well, so and so skates are better," and I'm like, "What an insult to the gift giver! What an insult when you, right, want to dismiss or diminish the gifts that were given to you in favor of somebody else's stuff that is their stuff. That's for them. That has nothing to do with you, right? I think in the same way, it is so sad when we dismiss our God-given gifts, whatever they may be. My gift is literally just talking. How whack is that, right? Like, I my daughter is plays basketball, so she watches all these people dunking and doing these moves, and it's like, meh, my gift is literally just crack the mic and talk, right? But I got in trouble for talking, Kelly, my entire life, all while I was in school, like all the time. Teachers would be like, "Oh, you talk too much. You talk too much. You got an A, but you talk too much." All the comments, right? That was always my gift. The problem is I didn't see it as a gift because a lot of other people tried to dismiss it.
Mm.
They didn't recognize it as my gift. So I started to not recognize it potentially of even being a gift. And I remember 13, at 13, I was doing a debutante and I was so intimidated because people were twirling batons and like they were playing the piano and the flute and violin and all this. And I'm like, damn, I don't have anything. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I ended up doing a speech. 13. I have the picture of me at the podium with a little French roll and little pearls in my hair. And I got a standing ovation. And I didn't even understand what that meant. I thought they were being nice. But I was so good even at 13 years old giving that speech. It's like something else took over me and I just went for it. And it was so good and I still wandered around for many years dismissing the fact that using my voice was a gift. And so it wasn't that I needed to find my purpose. I just needed to embrace what God had already given me, which was a great ability to communicate with people, right? And once I accepted it, all I had to do is go, okay, so if I'm going to talk, how do I make it more purposeful? Like what am I going to talk about? What actually lights me up? I loved at the time, I loved talking about money. But then purpose evolves. And then I realized I don't want to talk about money from the perspective of budgets and credit reports. I love financial psychology. I want to talk about wealth from like our behavior and our mindset. And things started to shift and it's evolved over the years, but the first step was going, you like to talk. Embrace that. Embrace that. Why do you keep running from that? Why do you keep running from it looking for something else that you think sounds better or looks better? You don't have to do that. You like to talk freaking talk. Now it's like, talk about what? Okay, you're going to talk about money. Now let's go look for some examples in the marketplace. Didn't see any black women. So who's next? Dave Ramsey. Saw Dave Ramsey. I was like, well, oh, white guy, that'll do, right? I've met Dave since then, Uncle Dave. There's no love lost, but that's all I saw. So I was like, okay, he must have a million degrees and all this stuff. I start researching him. I listened to him tell his story. Oh no, he just has a story of filing bankruptcy and losing it all. Well, doggone it. That's close to my story. So he used his story to build an entire brand and platform. If he did it, why not me? And so that was like the train of thought I was going down. And so then that volunteer opportunity that I told you about, now I'm there more intentional because I'm like, who do I need to meet? Like, what can I do? You know what they did, Kelly? They were like, can you speak? Can you go all over Atlanta and tell people about our services? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And so that was the thing. It just blossomed from there. But it was just the first step of going, okay, I'm not sure what I'm purposed to do, but what gives me energy? What have I always loved? What has always, put a little fire under me? What has lit me up? And when I looked at it, and not just as an adult, but going back to, again, 13 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, what were the common threads? This is who I've always been. Why am I trying to force myself to be something that I'm not? This is who you've always been. And so for the person who's like, well, I'm intimidated to find my purpose, you're not looking for it. You just have to embrace it. it's been the thing that has been with you all along. Just embrace it.
Every person listening or watching understands why I wanted this woman on the podcast for almost 2 years. You understand that. And we've got to have more episodes. We've got to have you on more. I want you in it every week. I want to have Patrice's corner.
Oh, you want me to be the co-host?
I'm
I
saying,
get the co-host?
hey, you could just be the host. Hell, like this is what I'm saying. I'll just sit off. You just make me a small thing in the corner. I'll just listen. It's amazing to be able to hear it. And not only to hear it, but you live it. Because for those of you out there, this is not a person. It's so funny how this was connected, right? Because we went to sell our salon. I'll say this quick. We went to sell our salon we did it in 2020. We put it on the market. It didn't close until 2021. I kept asking God, why is it that it's not closing? And then we put money down on a house a month afterwards, which was the silliest thing because we didn't have any income. So we do this. And so I keep asking God, why isn't the house closing? Because they're not allowing us to close. And he told me, he said, I'm not going to let it close until the salon actually closes. On the day that the salon funded, they said the money's in your bank. I checked my email right afterwards, and they said you could close on the house. Exact same day. But, Patrice, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because in my email on the exact same day was an email from two women who I had no idea who they were, but one of my friends said, get on a call with them, a Zoom. I got on the call with them. I had no idea. I hang up, but everything's good. That same day that the house closes, the salon closes, I get an email from these two women who I find out are from Success Magazine. One is Paige, who you know I'm talking about. And they say that we want to sign you to our speakers bureau for Success Magazine. And then 4 weeks ago, she says, I've got the perfect person to go on your podcast. And I said, who is it? And she said, Patrice Washington. I didn't tell her that you and I are friends. I just said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
And when they sent me the email and said, do you want to be on this podcast? I'm like, Kelly's my boy. Yeah, I've known Kelly for years. They're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
So it's amazing that way. So this is the thing, is you live it. And when I say this for every person out there, when you touch Patrice, when you go to patricewashington.com, the things that you see are just things that she lives, and she's living that part of it. And that's why I wanted to have her on the show. I'm blown away by it because, again, the authenticity of it, that like, if you're looking for someone real, you've already found it. Look no further, fella. You found him. And I started this podcast because I wanted to take iconic people like yourself, and I wanted to show my kids, Maddox and McKenna, that iconic people like Patrice are not superheroes, that you're simply a human being with a phenomenal attitude and crazy work ethic, and that you stay curious about everything.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both of their names, it would be amazing.
Maddox and McKenna, I would tell you that the sooner you learn to make decisions in life rooted in faith, not fear, the better. It's that simple. If you're going to make a decision from fear, it's never going to be the thing that really fulfills you. It's just going to breed more decisions that create fear and just take you in cycles of confusion and uncertainty. But when you make decisions rooted in faith, even when they seem illogical to other people, then you can stand and you can know it's going to be all right either way. There's a lesson or a blessing at the end of this for me. Either way it goes, but I can sleep at night and I can have peace, and I can, live my life not looking over my shoulders because I know that I lived with integrity and I lived the right way. And so everything that I did, I'm willing to answer for.
Books, podcasts, website, Patrice Washington. I tell you, after every single person that is listening to this, go see it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there is a reason why our podcast is ending right now. And it's because exactly all the things that she was talking about when we first started, before we started recording, she said, I have, and people say this to me all the time, like I got an appointment or I'm busy or whatever. Patrice didn't say that to me. What she said is, I am going to my daughter's basketball game. That's the reason why I have a time constraint today. And I want to thank you for that. I want to honor, and I want you to realize that that example as a parent, as a person, as a business professional, as a human being, is probably the greatest example that we could ever give. And now's the time where every one of you check out the sponsors, click the links. And what we want to tell you, this is the first time I've said it on the show, we want to provide Paul Mitchell hair care for every single person directly to your home, and kellycardenasalon.com can do it. We're sponsored by also Bling. Every woman needs a little bit of bling in their life, and the Bling Shine Serum is endorsed by my mama. Every one of you. It doesn't replace anything. It just enhances everything. Patrice, you have been absolutely phenomenal. I want to have you on again. I want to have you on again and again and again. The co-hosting thing, I'm telling you, I'll just be I'm just the guy sitting off to the side, just basking in it. You have been absolutely
you're so
amazing.
kind, friend.
I have huge expectations for you anyway, but you crushed every one of them. And I want to thank you.
Friend.
I want to thank you for who you are, what you do, and who you are in this world and what you are to so many people.
Thank you, friend. I receive it. I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, Patrice, you are officially off the hot seat.